Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm Nick, aka Dad, and if you saw last week's video where we showed you how to remove the OEM rear Bronco bumper, then you probably know this week we're getting into an install and review of the Turn Off-Road Baja bumper. Now you may be asking, why'd you go with the Turn Off-Road bumper? Well, there's a couple different things. One, we met up with Cole and his wife Kylie out at SEMA and learned a lot about their products and the company. They've actually been in business for a little bit, but even before Broncos, they were in the aftermarket company with their family doing a lot of Jeep parts. So they're not new to the aftermarket business. Learning more about their products, they design them here in the US, they come up with the ideas, they do the R&D, and yes, they're not built here, but still a great product. So we're gonna get to the unboxing here in a little bit. The other reason we're going with this bumper is it really complements our front bumper from Bay Area Metal Fab, which I'll talk about in the video as well. They're really stout, they work up to our 37-inch tire. They've got some great support. They work well with the factory tow hitch, which we have. The rear sensors are already got spots for those. So that's why we bought this Baja bumper. So let's get to this unboxing. And as Monk would say, let's get started with this install and review. All right, so here's the box we got from Turn Off-Road. The other cool thing about Turn Off-Road is that they have free shipping to a lot of places, really, as far as in the US anyway. That was definitely really nice to see, especially since most of their stuff comes from out in California. Wow, they really packed this thing really well. There's a ton of like spray and foam in this thing. Let's see if we can get this thing undone without making too much of a mess. Well, we got a box of hardware, it says on it, so better keep that. Don't want to lose that. Let's see if we can get this out yet here. There we go. All right, so what we have here is Turn Off-Road's Baja bumper. Now there's a couple of reasons I went with it. I like that they're using like 3/16-inch steel. The biggest thing though for me was the exposed tube design, which really mimics the front of our Bronco with our front bumper from Bay Area Metal Fab. Now the cool thing is it does work with a factory hitch. You've got kind of recessed here. I love that these pieces on the corners here come up a little bit, giving you a little bit more body protection. And then you've got all these little grommets in here for your rear parking assist if you have that. If you don't, you could probably just leave those in. But the next step for us before we put this on really is the wiring harness. So I got to get the wiring harness first off the old bumper so I can tie it into the new one. And there are some modifications you're going to have to make to the little plastic inserts that hold the sensors in. So let's get to that. All right, so looking at the rear bumper, I've got a couple of these brackets here, obviously, that everybody's going to have. That's what the bolts go through to tie it in. So it looks like I don't think you're going to be able to take the wiring loom out without taking these off. So it is a 15 millimeter to take all those bolts out. You've got 3 on each corner and then this one here, so you got 4 on either side. And looking at these clips on the sensors, mine are just caked in mud, so might take a little bit to get those out. All right, Ford, again, playing around with our Bronco, doing upgrades and stuff to it because of some of the cheap stuff we put on them from the factory. Look at this, everybody. Okay, so that is the side bolt that came out like it's supposed to. These will not come out. All that came out was what they thread them into. So they've either over torqued these from the factory and they won't come out, or the hardware they're using, well, you can see in this one here, pretty dirty, could be rusted in there already. It's only 3 years old. It's only a 2021 or almost 4, I guess 3.5. That one's still pretty clean, but still, those bolts would not come out with an impact. All that came out was the insert that they bolt into. So be mindful of that. Just drives me crazy. Awesome. Passenger side. One bolt came out. The other 3, not so much. Inserts came out with them. This little guy was just spinning in there and not even the insert came out. These, I had to use the wrench on them first, the ratchet, and then went in with the impact to break them loose even more. But still, inserts came out with them. All right, before I take this harness out, I did use a trim removal tool. They've got little Christmas tree clips all up and down this thing. I think there's probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's at least 10, if not maybe 12. But before I take it out, I want to remember which side was driver's side and which was passenger side. And I don't have any tape around here in the garage right now. So there's this tag on the passenger side. So I'm just going to write pass on it in a permanent marker in a Sharpie. So I remember that that side of the wiring harness translates to the passenger side of the Turn Off-Road Baja bumper. So let's pull this out now, see if we can get these sensors unclipped and install it on the other bumper. All right, well, the wiring harness is out. I would suggest using a flat blade screwdriver because when you go to push down on the ends of these things, at least with ours, there's so much dirt in that from us going off-road and that, and probably just from driving around, that they really don't move that much anymore. So I just use a flat blade screwdriver to get down in there and pull up on the tab so it would release. I thought at least the rear light would come out pretty easily, but no, it didn't either. So try a flat blade screwdriver to pop those guys out. Now we need to get the sensors out themselves. All right, I turned on the light here. To get these rear sensors out, once you get the harness off, these are actually only held in, I'll pull this one out, by a couple little tabs. You see that right there on only 2 sides. So you just have to find, on mine was top and bottom really, to push those out with a flat bladed screwdriver, and then the sensor should pop out. Now that we have the sensor out with just those 2 little tabs, those same black tabs that we're holding in the sensor, if you press those in, that will actually release it from there, from the retaining ring. We can pull out the retaining ring, and now you've got kind of the bezel for it, and then the locking ring comes out too. Okay, now one thing to remember on this bezel and this locking ring is you want to make sure that that wide part here, you can actually see the tabs on the inside there, need to go where these holes are at. So when you line them up, and they'll lock down, and now they won't come apart unless you press the little black tabs on the inside, and then this will slide off. So, and I have a feeling looking at this that the metal's not as thick as this plastic is, so we may have, it might be a little loose, but we'll see here. All right, well, it is nighttime. Right after I got done doing that last little section there, while it was still light out, my little ones woke up. But since then, Noah, the smallest one, has gone down for another nap. And my next oldest, Riley, who's 3, she is content eating her dinner right now and watching Spider-Man. So we're out here. I got a lot done currently. A couple things is I've got it all wired up basically at this point. But let me flip this over and show you what it looks like. All right, so here's our outside ones. They fit really well, and I notice there's grooves in the steel, so these bezels can only go in a certain way. So I think it's like you could put it in, you know, this 9 o'clock position or a 3 o'clock position, but you're going to spin it around and you won't be sitting flush. So make sure it's sitting flush, and then put your locking ring on. When you do this too, the other thing, let me show you as far as your connection back here goes. Your connection will be easily accessible through the cutout they have in the steel. If for some odd reason your sensor is 180 degrees, it's not right. You need to go back in and make sure that it's sitting to where you can get that connection in. I'm telling you, this thing is not super light, so it is definitely nice and good steel. These center sections here, you will need to cut those because the bezels are just as big as that. So you're going to trim them down to that kind of line that they have, that body line. That one I probably miscut a little bit, or it's a little off. But yeah, you're definitely going to want to cut those down. So all of our wiring is done. I've even got my little quick disconnect down here for the license plate lights, which was one reason we're doing this now, because the last video we did was the Turn Off-Road license plate relocation kit, which comes with its own light. So we showed the wiring there. I'll put the quick connect on that side. So in case I ever had to take off the bumper, I can easily disconnect that without having to cut the wires. So at this point, let me get the bumper put on, and we'll get the rest of the wiring done, and we'll show you what it looks like. Now I just opened that box that said hardware on it, and this is what was in it. I started thinking about it. I'm like, what are those for? Well, it's probably for those little extra ones that went into the side, the little 13mm ones. I bet that's what they're for. So let me put this bumper on and we'll see what we got here. Okay, now before we put our bumper on, we need to put these brackets in. Now, what were these brackets for? Well, I looked through it, and they actually go inside the frame rail on the outside. So this is the driver's side. We'll put our lock washer on first, and we'll put our washer on. Put those in, and we're basically just gonna start this, get a few threads in there, because I'll show you, but the bumper's gonna kind of hang on this a little bit here. So we'll get these started on both sides, and then I'll show you how they hang. All right, here's a better view of that bracket inside there. I've got the bolt going through, lock washer, washer, trying to leave enough room so when I slide on the bumper, it'll go into a cutout that they have, which I'll show you here in a sec. Let's get this slid on. Now, this bumper is pretty heavy, but I've done this all by myself tonight, so I'm very confident that you can do it by yourself, but if you do have a friend, it does make it go quicker. More hands, always that whole, whatever they say. More hands, less work, something like that. Now, don't forget about your connectors here. The nice thing about this bumper, though, versus the OEM plastic one, as I try to catch my breath, is that it is a lot easier to get to the connector, which is basically right here. And you just push that in until you hear a little pop. And you might have to push pretty hard, at least on ours you do, just because of all the debris and junk we've gotten in there. There we go. Heard it click. It's good to go. All right, so there's that bolt, lock washer and washer, slid right through this groove that they have in here. So now I'll have my other bolts that'll go in here and here, along with this one on the side. So again, 3 on each side, just like the OEM. One more thing before you tighten everything down too, is if you don't have a recovery point, which you don't on this bumper, that is one thing I've talked to them about, that they should have some kind of integrated D-ring or something into here. Since this doesn't have any recovery points, I am going to put back on our original recovery point from the factory. We'll bolt it on this side. We're going to do some upgrades up front as well, so I'm going to take my recovery point from up there and also put it back here. I've already got D-ring basically welded on to the front bumper, so I've got recovery points there. So we'll just add another one to the passenger side back here. And the last thing I had to do was to be able to get power to our little LED here for the license plate. And we've got our quick disconnect here just in case I need to take off the bumper for some odd reason. Use my little solder sticks there, cut it back enough that hopefully I'll be able to hide it back behind the bumper here. We'll just tuck him up and away, maybe behind, there's the wiring harness here. So hopefully he'll just stay up in there, but this is done. And it's always nice to see when you do some wiring that it actually works. So everything's working good. Let's give you our final thoughts on the Baja bumper here, installation process, and build quality. Hey, thanks again for stopping in and watching our install of the Turn Off-Road Baja bumper. Again, we really do like it. It works well with our 37-inch tall tire, giving you plenty of clearance. Fits, again, really tight to the body. And the most important thing to me is that it gives us some added protection gets that bumper a little bit higher off the ground, so departure angle is a lot better. You can definitely see that we're going to be catching our hitch in that more than anything else anymore. And we still can retain a recovery point with these. Gives us a spot for our rear sensors. And then again, has these really nice tubes on here that mimic what we have from Bay Area Metal Fab. So if you're looking for a bumper or really any kind of accessories for your Bronco, whether it be just for looks or real protection, check out Turn Off Road. We'll put a link down below. You can always go there, check them out. They've got front bumpers, rear bumpers, winch mount bumpers. They've got their TR10 hard top. If you've got a soft top, check out Turn Off Road for hard tops. They're shipping them right now. They are in stock, so get on that list, get your one coming. And I don't believe you have to have a deposit for them, so even better yet. They've also got other accessories. They've got tailgate reinforcement. They have all kinds of great stuff, even some more stuff coming out. So check them out. We'll put the link down below. And as always, if you're not a subscriber, smash that subscribe button. We've got more videos coming out and more tips, tricks, things that we find we're putting on our Bronco that may interest you. But as always, thanks for watching. Have a blessed day. Bye.